At the family reunion, my unfaithful husband arrived with his new mistress and brazenly announced her as his future wife. He shouted at me, vowing to take over my restaurant, divorce me, and leave me with nothing. The room was stunned into silence, but I couldn't stop laughing. Little did they know, the two of them had just walked straight into my carefully laid trap, and by the time I was done, their entire world would come crashing down. My name is Elena, and this is the story of how my world fell apart, only for me to rebuild it stronger than ever. I never thought I'd be the kind of woman to find herself betrayed, but life is a way of teaching lessons in the most painful ways. Let me start at the beginning, the day everything began to unravel. I was 35, running a chain of luxury restaurants in Miami. Business was good, and I had built a life I was proud of. My husband, Ryan, was a business consultant. Or at least, that's what I thought. We had been married for 8 years, and while our marriage wasn't perfect, I believed we were happy. He traveled a lot for work, always busy with meetings and conferences, but I chalked it up to his ambition. I admired him for it, or maybe I just convinced myself to. Things began to feel off. Ryan started acting strange, overly interested in my family affairs, which was unusual. He had always avoided family events, calling them a waste of time. So when he insisted on hosting the annual family gathering at our estate, I was surprised. I even joked about it with my younger sister, Mila, who had always been my closest confidant. She raised an eyebrow and said, "Elena, since when does Ryan care about family reunions? Something's up." I shrugged it off, trying to ignore the unease bubbling inside me. Maybe he was just trying to be more involved, I told myself. That was until I noticed other changes. Ryan started making calls late at night, whispering in the study with the door locked. He claimed it was work, but the way he quickly shut his laptop when I entered the room told me otherwise. The day of the family gathering arrived, and Ryan was a whirlwind of activity, coordinating the catering, picking the decor, and even fussing over the seating arrangements. I tried to push my doubts aside as my family arrived. My parents, Victor and Carla, showed up early, bringing their usual warmth and energy. My dad had always been a hard man to impress, but my mom was the glue that held us all together. My cousin Vanessa arrived next, looking as polished as ever in a designer dress that felt a little too flashy for a family lunch. As everyone settled in, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. Ryan was overly attentive to Vanessa, stealing glances at her when he thought no one was looking. Mila noticed too. She leaned in and whispered, "What's with him? He's acting like he's hosting a red carpet event." I forced a laugh, but my stomach churned. Then it happened. Midway through lunch, as my father was giving one of his classic speeches about family values, Ryan stood up and clinked his glass. The room fell silent. I thought he was going to thank everyone for coming, but his next words knocked the air out of me. "I have an announcement to make," he said, smiling that smug smile I had grown to hate. "Vanessa and I are in love." The room froze. My family's shocked faces mirrored my own. Vanessa reached for his hand across the table, her expression a mix of triumph and nerves. Ryan continued, as if rehearsed, "Elena and I will be divorcing. Vanessa and I want to start a new chapter together." I couldn't speak. My mother's hand flew to her mouth, while my father's face turned crimson with fury. Mila, sitting beside me, whispered, "Oh my God, Elena, say something." But I didn't. I just stared at Ryan, the man I had shared my life with, as he destroyed it in front of everyone. Then something clicked inside me. This wasn't shock. This wasn't new information. I had known for months, deep down, that something was happening. And while my world felt like it was falling apart, I realized I had been preparing for this moment. I stood up slowly, setting down my wine glass. "Is that all, Ryan?" I asked, my voice calm, steady. His smirk faltered. He had been expecting tears, screams, a meltdown. What he didn't know was that I wasn't the same woman he thought I was. "Elena," he began, his tone condescending, "I know this must be shocking." "Not really," I interrupted. "Though I am curious, Vanessa, did he promise you a share of the restaurants? Because that's going to be complicated. The color drained from Ryan's face. Vanessa's hand tightened around his.
"What are you talking about?" she demanded.
I smiled. "Oh, you'll find out soon enough. But please, don't let me stop you from celebrating your big announcement." I turned to my stunned family. "I apologize for this unexpected entertainment. Please enjoy the food. I need some air." I walked out onto the patio, where the cool Miami breeze hit my face. Mila followed me, wrapping her arm around my shoulders.
"You knew," she said.
It wasn't a question. For months, I admitted. And I've been preparing. For what? Before I could answer, my phone buzzed. It was Patrick, my lawyer. I opened the message. "All documents are ready. Operation Karma is a go." I showed Mila the message. Her eyes widened. "Elena," she breathed. "What have you done?" "Everything," I said, my voice steady. "I've done everything to make sure Ryan doesn't just lose me. He loses everything he tried to take from me." Behind us, the voices from the dining room rose as the chaos unfolded. But for the first time in months, I felt calm. Ryan thought he had blindsided me. He had no idea he had just walked into the first step of his own downfall. This was just the beginning. When I walked out onto the patio that day, I knew there was no turning back. Everything Ryan had done, everything he had planned, it was about to come crashing down. But let me tell you, it didn't happen overnight. The truth was, I'd spent months preparing for this. I just never thought the moment would feel so surreal. After Mila read Patrick's message, she asked me again, "What have you done, Elena?" "I've made sure that Ryan doesn't get away with this," I said, staring out at the Miami skyline. "And that starts today." Mila leaned against the railing, trying to piece it all together. "What do you mean? What did Patrick mean by Operation Karma?" I turned to face her. "I've known about Ryan's affair for 6 months. At first, I didn't want to believe it. I thought I was imagining things, that maybe I was being paranoid. But then I started noticing the late-night phone calls, the sudden business trips that didn't add up, the way he was always whispering to someone when he thought I wasn't around." Mila frowned. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because I needed proof," I said. If I had confronted him without it, he would have denied everything and twisted it around. So I started paying attention. I checked his laptop one night when he was asleep and saw emails between him and Vanessa. They were planning everything, the divorce, the takeover of the restaurants, even how they were going to manipulate the board into pushing me out. Mila's jaw dropped.
"What?"
How could he be so arrogant? "Because he thought I wasn't paying attention," I said, my voice sharper than I intended. "He underestimated me, and that was his first mistake." Over the next few weeks, I worked quietly but methodically. I hired Patrick, a lawyer I had met through a mutual friend, and explained everything to him. He advised me to act cautiously. Together, we came up with a plan to protect what was mine. The first step was ensuring Ryan couldn't touch the business. Patrick helped me draft documents that transferred controlling interest of the restaurant chain to me. The brilliance of it? Ryan signed them himself, thinking they were routine paperwork for the business. He never read a single page. Ironic, isn't it? His own arrogance blinded him. But the real game-changer came when Mila, who's an investigative journalist, decided to help me dig deeper. I told her about Ryan's emails, and she suggested we look into his business dealings. Mila had a knack for uncovering secrets, and within weeks, we discovered that Ryan wasn't just planning to betray me, he was running an illegal import-export operation. Smuggling high-value goods under the radar, laundering money through shell companies, the works. "I still can't believe he was stupid enough to think he'd get away with all of this," Mila said as we worked late one night in my home office. "People like Ryan always think they're untouchable," I said. "He's been lying for so long that he's convinced himself no one will ever catch him." Mila tapped her laptop screen. "Well, he's about to get a reality check. Look at this. Offshore accounts. Fake invoices. And here, he's been paying someone named Jacob." The name made me freeze. "Jacob?" "As in Vanessa's ex-husband." "Looks like it," Mila said. "Ryan's been wiring him money for months. Big amounts. My guess? Jacob is part of this operation, too." And just like that, the puzzle pieces started falling into place. Vanessa wasn't just Ryan's mistress. She was also being used by Jacob. He had probably manipulated her into working with Ryan, promising her a piece of the pie. It was almost sad, almost. By the time the family gathering rolled around, I was ready. I knew Ryan would try to make his announcement there, thinking he'd humiliate me and come out on top. What he didn't know was that I had already taken everything he thought he was stealing. After the chaos of that day, I spent the next few hours on the phone with Patrick, finalizing the next steps. Mila stayed by my side, her journalist instincts kicking in as she started digging even deeper. The more we uncovered, the more obvious it became that Ryan's entire plan was falling apart, and he didn't even know it yet. But I wasn't finished. I needed more leverage, something that would force Ryan to cooperate when the time came. That's when Mila found the real smoking gun, records of Ryan's illegal shipments. If I handed those over to the authorities, it wouldn't just ruin his business. It would send him to prison. Do you really want to go that far? Mila asked me one night. I looked at her, and for the first time, I felt the full weight of what I was doing. Mila, he betrayed me. He tried to take everything I've worked for.
He thought I was too weak to fight back.
This isn't just about revenge. It's about justice. He needs to face the consequences of his actions. Mila nodded.
Okay.
Then let's make sure we get it right. The final piece of the puzzle came unexpectedly. Vanessa showed up at my office one evening, looking nervous and desperate. "Elena, I need to talk to you," she said. I leaned back in my chair, studying her. "Why would I want to hear anything you have to say?" "Because I know what Ryan and Jacob have been planning," she said. "And I want out." Her confession caught me off guard, but I didn't trust her, not yet. "Why now, Vanessa? Why should I believe you?" "Because Jacob's been threatening me," she said, her voice shaking. "He used me to get to Ryan, and now he's using Ryan to cover his tracks." I didn't know it would go this far. I stared at her for a long moment. Maybe she was telling the truth, or maybe she was just trying to save herself. Either way, I realized she might be the key to bringing both Ryan and Jacob down. "Fine," I said finally. "If you're serious about helping me, then tell me everything." And she did. By the time she left, I had all the information I needed to finish what I'd started. Ryan thought he was in control. Jacob thought he was untouchable. But they were about to learn the hard way that karma never misses its mark. When Vanessa left my office that evening, I sat there for a while, letting her words sink in. I didn't trust her completely, but the details she shared lined up with what Mila and I had already uncovered. Ryan and Jacob's partnership wasn't just about stealing from me, it was part of a much larger, more dangerous operation. Smuggling, laundering, fraud, they had their hands in everything. Vanessa had been their pawn, and now that the walls were closing in, she wanted out. I couldn't help but feel a little sorry for her. But not too much. The next step was setting the trap. Patrick and Mila helped me map out every detail. The key was timing. I needed to make Ryan feel like he still had the upper hand, even as his entire world was crumbling beneath him. And for that, I needed a confrontation on my terms. 2 days later, I sent Ryan a message. "Meet me at Café Lirio tomorrow at 3 p.m. Alone. We need to talk." Café Lirio was where we'd had our first date, back when I thought Ryan was charming and ambitious, not the liar and manipulator I now knew him to be. I chose it deliberately, knowing it would throw him off balance. People like Ryan thrive on control, and the last thing he'd expect was for me to take it back. The next day, I arrived early, taking a seat near the back where I could see both the entrance and the exit. Mila and Patrick were nearby, just in case, but this was my battle to fight. Ryan walked in right on time, wearing his usual power suit and that same smug expression. He spotted me and sauntered over like he owned the place. It was almost laughable. "Elena," he said, sitting across from me. "To what do I owe the pleasure?" I stared at him, letting the silence stretch just long enough to make him uncomfortable. "You're going to sign the divorce papers," I said finally. "And you're going to walk away with nothing." He chuckled, leaning back in his chair. "Is that so? Last I checked, half of everything is mine, including those restaurants you're so proud of." I slid an envelope across the table. "Open it." Ryan frowned, but did as I asked. Inside were copies of the documents he had signed months ago, transferring controlling interest of the restaurant chain to me. His face darkened as he flipped through the pages, realization dawning. This is a joke, he said, his voice shaking.
No, Ryan.
That's your signature on every page. You signed away your share of the business without even reading the fine print. You were too busy scheming with Vanessa to notice. He slammed the envelope onto the table, his composure cracking. You think this is going to stop me? I'll fight you in court. I'll drag this out for years. Good luck with that, I said calmly. But you might want to read what's in the second envelope first. I slid another envelope across the table. This one contained proof of his illegal activities, smuggling records, offshore accounts, payments to Jacob. Mila and I had worked tirelessly to compile everything, and it was damning. Ryan's face turned pale as he flipped through the evidence. Where did you get this?
I have my sources, I said.
And if you don't sign the papers and walk away quietly, I'll hand all of this over to the authorities. You'll lose more than the restaurants, Ryan. You'll lose everything. He tried to regain his composure, but I could see the panic in his eyes. You don't have the guts. Try me, I said, leaning forward. And before you think about running to Jacob for help, you should know that Vanessa has already confessed everything. She's cooperating with me now. Jacob's days are numbered, and so are yours. Ryan's hands clenched into fists. Vanessa, that ungrateful. Careful, I interrupted. You wouldn't want to say something you'll regret. He glared at me, his arrogance replaced by desperation. For the first time, he realized he wasn't in control. I was. The next day, Patrick filed the signed divorce papers, officially severing my ties to Ryan. But the battle wasn't over yet. As expected, Ryan tried to retaliate. He made a last-ditch effort to dig up dirt on my father, Victor, hoping to use it against me. What he didn't realize was that I had already spoken to my father about his past. Yes, there had been questionable deals decades ago, but nothing that could hurt him now. Ryan's threats were empty, and he knew it. Meanwhile, Mila uncovered even more about Jacob's operations. He had been using Ryan to funnel money through his illegal trading network, promising him a cut of the profits. But when Vanessa turned on him, Jacob panicked. He started moving his funds to offshore accounts, trying to cover his tracks. That was when Patrick and I made our move. We provided the authorities with everything we had on Jacob and Ryan. The smuggling routes, the fake invoices, the money laundering, it was all there. Within days, Jacob was on the run and Ryan was under investigation. It was only a matter of time before they both faced the consequences of their actions. The morning after the divorce was finalized, I sat in my office, staring at the stack of documents Patrick had brought me. The restaurant chain was mine, officially and legally. But this wasn't just about the business. It was about reclaiming my life, my dignity, and my power. Vanessa called me later that day. Elena, I just wanted to say thank you for giving me a chance to fix things. Don't thank me yet, I said. You still have a lot to prove. But if you're serious about turning your life around, I'll give you that chance. She promised she wouldn't let me down. Only time would tell if she meant it. As for Ryan, I didn't hear from him directly after that. He was too busy trying to save himself. But deep down, I knew it was over for him. Karma was already catching up. And I wasn't done yet. There was one more move to make, and it would be the final nail in the coffin. The morning I saw the news headline, I knew it was over for Ryan and Jacob. The authorities had raided Jacob's safe house in New Orleans and arrested him on charges of money laundering, smuggling, and tax evasion. As for Ryan, he was taken into custody shortly after, caught in his office trying to shred documents when investigators showed up with a warrant. It was surreal, watching it all play out. For months, I had been working toward this moment, preparing every detail, every move. Now, as I sat in my office sipping my coffee, I felt a strange sense of calm. Karma had finally done its work. Later that day, Patrick came by with updates. Jacob's operation is unraveling, he said, placing a thick file on my desk. The evidence we handed over gave the authorities everything they needed. Ryan and Jacob are both looking at long prison sentences. And the restaurants? I asked. They're safe, Patrick assured me. Ryan forfeited any claims when he signed the divorce papers. The board is fully behind you. Your leadership has stabilized the company. Hearing those words felt like a victory, but there was still one loose end to tie up. Vanessa. She had been complicit in the beginning, but she had also played a crucial role in exposing Jacob's plans. I decided to give her the second chance she had asked for. I invited her to my new cafe, a small, beautiful space I had purchased in downtown Miami. It was a symbolic gesture, a reminder of where my journey had started and how far I had come. Vanessa arrived, looking more like her old self, simple, understated, no flashy designer clothes. "Thank you for meeting me," she said nervously. "I didn't do this for you, Vanessa," I said, motioning for her to sit. "I did it because I believe in redemption. But I need to know you're serious about turning your life around." "I am," she said, her voice firm. "I've cut ties with Jacob. I want to build something real, something honest." I slid a folder across the table. "This is a management contract for the cafe. If you're serious, you'll take this job and prove to me that you're more than the mistakes you've made." Tears filled her eyes as she nodded. "Thank you, Elena. I won't let you down." A week later, I attended the board meeting as the official CEO of the restaurant chain. It felt incredible to sit at the head of the table, a position I had earned not just through strategy, but through resilience. My father, Victor, even came by to congratulate me. "I underestimated you, Elena," he said, pride shining in his eyes. "You've shown more strength than I ever thought possible." Months passed, and life finally began to feel normal again. Ryan's trial ended with a guilty verdict, and he was sentenced to 8 years in prison. Jacob faced even harsher penalties. As for me, I focused on expanding the business and launching a mentorship program for women in leadership, a way to help others avoid the kind of betrayal I had endured. Standing in my cafe one afternoon, watching customers enjoy their coffee and pastries, I reflected on everything that had happened. My story wasn't just about revenge or bringing people down. It was about rebuilding myself, proving that no matter how much someone tries to tear you down, you can always rise again. Karma might have done its part, but I had done mine too. And that, I realized, was the sweetest victory of all.